This is editor Elijah speaking. I just realized I didn't do a great job of articulating the changes these habits made in my life. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how this actually affected me, right? So before, kind of the run-of-the-mill A-B student, trying to get that A, might get an A-, might get a B. I struggled to comprehend and to understand information, even though I enjoyed biology, even though I enjoyed sciences. And now my skills have just exploded and flourished because of these skills, really because of these skills. And I am excited to share them with you today, and I think I put together a great toolkit to improve your grades, to improve your learning, to help you be where you are today. Now that I'm at GCU, I'm obviously a 4.0 student. I don't really want to brag, so I'm not going to get ahead of it, but I put a bunch of stuff into an edit, so we'll start this video off with it. This is horrible. Enjoy the video.
Everyone makes mistakes, except me.
Okay, so you know the title of this video. I'm going to try to help you study better. I've always been kind of an advanced student, but I certainly was not where I'm at now, and there's a lot of reasons to that. Before we begin kind of the practical meat of this video, I really want to focus in on something that will change your life, and it's, do you really want to change? Like, be honest with yourself. Do you really want to study more? Do you really want to make changes? Or do you kind of want to stay the same? Like, are you content where you're at? And I mean it seriously, because if you don't want to change, if you don't get the motivation to change, nothing will change, unfortunately. The things I'm going to say in this video are pretty simple. What I do is not complicated. It's just hard, and a lot of people don't want to do it. So if you have no reason to do it, if you have no motivation why you should be doing these things, you're not going to make the change, and you'll click off this video. And when you're done, you're not really going to make lasting changes on your life. I can't help you want to become something better. If you want to become something better, I'm going to do my best to outline a really simple plan for how I study and how I've seen the best people study. So hopefully it will work for you. I hope you have a reason to change. I hope you have a vision that you want to achieve. Specifically with vision, a lot of people aren't clear about where they want to be. And I think that's one of the biggest problems, is you don't have a clear vision for your future. So I'm just going to insert a Jordan Peterson clip here because it's insanely important and he articulates it in a much better way than I can. So I'll just slide that in here.
You can have what you want in 5 years, but there's two conditions. You have to know what it is, and you have to aim at it, okay? So let's say you're willing to play that game. Might be wrong, because who knows, you're going to get run over by a bus tomorrow, but you're going to play the game. Okay, now the next step is, all right, you probably want to have an intimate relationship. Now, maybe not, but probably, but assuming you do, imagine, pretend like you're a kid. You get to have an intimate relationship. What does it look like? What does it look like when your wife greets you when you come home from work? What does your sex life look like, right? What do you do for entertainment? How do you treat each other? You need a fantasy, just like a little kid playing house, right? Figure out what you want. Write it down. Figure out what you could do to start moving towards that, okay? Do that with your family relationships. Do that with your friendships. Do that with your career. Do that with your education. Think about your misuse of alcohol and drugs and other things that might drag you down. If you want to drink, it's like you want to be a bumbling Barney Gumble idiot? Like, you want to drink? Okay, what do you mean by that exactly? How often? How much is too much? How are you going to constrain that and why? Develop a vision, and you have to do that in dialogue with yourself, right? It's like, if I could have what I wanted, what would satisfy me? And you might think, well, I could never get that. And I could say, well, maybe not, but I'll tell you one thing, man. You can move towards it.
This clip's from years and years ago, and I did this when I was 13 or 14. I started outlining a plan for my life, where I want to be in 5 years, what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I think that is what has driven me, what's given me motivation to do a lot of the difficult things that people don't want to study. Because without a plan long term, you can't build a plan medium term, like a semester, and you can't build a plan short term, like studying today. And so you really need to start 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and then work your way backwards. So in my life, kind of the inception began watching some of these motivational YouTubers and like saying, outline a plan for your life. So it began, okay, I want to become a doctor. What is it going to take to get there? I need to outline that very clearly, articulate what I want to be, articulate what it's going to take in the long term, in the medium term, in the short term. And then from there, then I can find my motivation to study. I really beg of you, make a plan for your life. Even if you are open to change it, say you're forensic science. Okay, I want this grade to get here. What's it going to take to do that? You can't do well if you don't have a reason to study. Make a reason to add that minor. Have a reason to take that extra class. Have a reason to get good grades in your classes. Like seriously, you're not going to get into med school if you don't have good grades. That's just the way it is. B's and C's don't cut it for med school. You need to get those A's. So maybe that's the reason for you. That's certainly the reason for me. In the long term, cast a crystal clear vision, and you can't lie to yourself here. You have to be honest with what it will take to get there, and if you can do that. And I believe everybody can achieve, for the most part, what they want. I can promise you, if you can achieve exactly what your dream is, you'll be in a better place anyway than you would be if you didn't make the goal in the first place. So before we get into anything, you really need to have a vision for your life, a long-term plan, and a reason why. If you don't have a reason to change, you won't. I promise you, you won't change if you don't have a reason to change. I'm going to say it again. If you don't have a reason to change, you won't change. With those things in mind, this is the hardest step that I took, and it sucks so much, which is why you need to have a really good reason to make it. Because if you don't have a really good reason to make this change, I promise you, you won't do it. This step is so sucky. It's so hard. And that choice is get off devices. That's it. I mean, there's nothing, you've heard everything about it. You've tried, you've done everything. That's what you have to do. Nobody can make it better for you but you. For me, it came to a head last summer. I had just decided to switch from nursing to pre-med, upping my difficulty of course load. And I was very scared to do that. And a thought occurred to me that I realized there's a version of me that becomes a doctor, and there's a version that continues to scroll Instagram Reels, that continues to be on YouTube. I spent hours a day watching YouTube, that continues to binge watch shows, and those don't mix. Like the odds of me becoming a doctor while burdened with hours and hours a day of screen time just were very, very low. And that couldn't happen. And I promise you, every problem you have with studying, the root of it right now is screen time. If you've ever heard the statement, I can't focus, I don't have enough time, I have ADHD, I promise you the root of that is your phone. A lot of people medicate with Adderall or other drugs to replace the just dopamine deficit that is caused by chronic device addiction. So please get off your phone. And we're all addicted to our phones. You got to start by admitting that. Get off your phone, and only then can you start to make this change. This is the suckiest part. This is the hardest part. If you can do that, after this, it gets way easier. So you got off your phone. Let's say you got off your phone completely. You are under an hour a day You have rules set in place for yourself that you follow, that you keep your screen time down. That's what I did last summer. I gave my mom, my best friend, my brother a passcode to my devices and locked everything up. So watching videos, going on social media is basically impossible. I have a screen time for Instagram every day. And beyond that, I try to limit all screen time. Once I did this last year, I haven't gotten a B since. It's literally like you ran a marathon or you were running marathons with a weighted vest and you just took it off. As soon as you get off your phone, everything becomes free. Your motivation is near infinite. Your capacity to live is doubled, tripled, quadrupled. It just makes your life so much better. It was so hard, but I promise you, it's the best decision to make. Final thing, replace scrolling or screen time when you're bored with doing something that A, is actually restful, or B, is productive. This is another game changer where once I stopped scrolling social media in my free time, I started reading again. I've started writing. I've started thinking. I've started doing creative, productive things instead of being on my phone. So to recap, cut out the phone, limit your screen time. You will basically then have superpowers as far as your tenacity, your focus, and your ability to do schoolwork when you're studying. Your ability to study starts in your day-to-day life, in your routines. So do that first, and everything after that is like running without a weighted vest on. I promise you, it makes your life so much easier. So here's part 2. This is the easy part. Once that is done, this is where studying becomes productive. Now, I want to go into study habits, specifically how people learn, how people prepare for tests. A lot of people tell me, Elijah, I'm horrible at tests. I can't get better than a B on a test. I have test anxiety. When I go into a test, I don't feel prepared. I don't learn information like you do. It's not as easy. And those are really fallacies. Obviously, there's some extent of raw processing power that people have. Some people are brilliant, others are less brilliant. That's fair, that exists. But I promise you, for undergraduate classes, that's not the issue. For 99% of people, that's not the issue. An old professor of mine said that he, in all his years, had met 2 people that couldn't do science. And he'd had tens of thousands of students. And he was like, there are people that exist that can't do science. They really can't process it. They can't think that way. But that's not you. That's not your issue. Your issue is something else. And it's not your brain. It's what your brain's doing. So get that excuse out of the way. And I want to use this example that I think I made, but I'm sure somebody else has used it before. Imagine you go to the gym and you have a friend that you see there all the time. And your friend will go 5 hours every single day to the gym. And he'll sit there, and every exercise he does, he uses the 2.5 pound weight. So he'll do 20 curls with the 2.5 pound weight, put it down, rest 3 minutes, 20 curls. Squats, same thing. He'll hold 2.5 pound weights and do like 10 squats and then stop. And then do something else with 2.5 pound weights, stop. And he's frustrated because you're only in the gym 3 times a week and you're growing way faster than him. And he's like, what's going on? Like, do I have a genetic condition? Like, what's happening? Would you tell your friend that he's genetically like worse off than you? Like, oh, that's too bad. No, what would you tell him? You're doing it wrong. You're working out wrong. You don't have an efficient way to exercise. We all know now that you want to do what? An RPE of 7 or 8 from 8 to 15 reps doing this. Okay, we all get that. But when it comes to studying, so many people are applying the 2.5 pound weight rule. Nothing upsets me more than somebody that I know telling me how hard they studied for a test, how many hours they studied for a test, and yet they got a bad grade. That's not cool. That doesn't mean you're worse off. It doesn't mean you're a victim. It just means you studied improperly. And that's not your fault. You might not know how to study. But that's why you need to change your study habits if you want to change your test results. It's very easy. It's not easy. I take that back. It's very simple. It might not be very easy. So how do you make a more efficient study routine? It's a good question. I do actually know, and I'm about to tell you. Number 1, I hope you've heard it before. If you haven't, this is unbelievable. Stop reading and rereading and intaking information to study. Intaking information does not mean you learn information. You learn information by pulling out information. This is called recall. Okay, a lot of people talk about active recall. It's not complicated. It means you're learning by withdrawing information from your brain. The reason is our brains intake an enormous amount of information. Our eyes every second are intaking millions of bits of information, and we only use a few thousand of those for our sensory stuff, and we probably take less of that and put it into long-term memory. We are good at quickly intaking a lot of information. What humans are bad at is storing and recalling information. You don't need to work on taking in more information. You need to work on pulling that information out. How do you do that? Number one, stop reading and rereading. Stop watching videos. Stop watching lectures. Obviously, you need these things, but this is not how you're going to study, okay? This is before you study. That's not part of your studying. Instead, once you've learned a small bit of material, learn to recall that with no aid. And this is hard. This is like going from doing a set of 10 with a 2.5 pound weight to doing a set of 10 with 225 pounds on your back on a back squat. It's a lot harder, but you can do it. And I promise you, it will get so much easier as you learn to push yourself there. Now, there are 1,000 videos that will explain the details of a good active recall regimen. A lot of people recommend like a whiteboard method where once you learn the information, you write down everything you can remember on a whiteboard. That's really good. Flashcards are also really great. I use OnKey for like anatomy and some stuff. It's an app. Quizlet's great. Paper flashcards are great. In fact, I have stacks of paper flashcards that I made. A lot of times I find it's a little more inefficient to make the paper ones, and the digital ones are easier to make and easier to customize. But everybody that used to be a doctor learned from paper flashcards, so there has to be something to them. Of those of you that do use flashcards and do use the active recall study methods and you're still struggling with retaining information, and this exists, it's true, a lot of times you're cheating yourself out of the struggle. What do you mean by this? When you're doing it, go till failure. Go until you can't recall anything else. For example, if you have a flashcard, you think you might know the answer, so you turn it over. And you're like, oh, that's what I thought it was. Well, maybe it was, but you turned it over too fast before you gut out the information. So when you're on a flashcard that's difficult, hold, pause, think about it, try to dig in your mind. What is it? What is it? Oh, the word is this. Say the word, that's your answer, it's locked in, test it. No, it's not correct. Yes, it is correct. Push until you have made a decisive answer. This is super, super important on chemistry as well. A lot of people have been asking me, how do you study for organic chemistry? It's really tough. And the biggest mistake I see people making is cheating themselves out of learning on a problem. You can only see a problem for the first time once. And a lot of people I see will watch a video or watch a tutorial on how to do the problem instead of trying it themselves. You won't learn how to do a problem unless you do it yourself. So for example, I have a friend, and how she studies for organic chemistry tests is she watches a video of one of the professors go through and answer the problems. That's not how you learn. You learn by pulling information out, not intaking information. So she'll look at this and say, oh, it makes sense how the professor gets to that conclusion. But as soon as you're in a test situation, that information's gone. You're not going to pull it out again. You're not going to be able to find that pathway again unless you do it. So instead of watching somebody explain the problem, do it yourself. Start in the beginning and go and go and go until you can't anymore. When you can't anymore, don't cheat yourself. Don't go to the video. Make a guess, make an educated reason, establish a reason why you're going to move forward, and complete the problem. Get an answer. Get an answer that you can test against the truth. So, you did the organic chemistry problem, you selected A. Maybe it was right, maybe it's not right. But you established a line of reasoning to get from the question to the answer. Then pull up the answer sheet, then pull up the video and see where you went wrong and then adjust that pathway in your mind. This is 1,000 times more effective than just watching a video. And I think a big thing with this is it's mentally hard. Even after 30 minutes of really active studying, your brain will be tired. That's when you need a break. Take a break, give it a moment, let your brain rest for a bit, and then go back to whatever you have to do. I think a lot of people will do like the 25-5 rule or these really fast-paced studying rules that are designed for active recall, that are designed for a really brutal study regimen, but they're just watching videos for 15 minutes and then scrolling on their phone for 15 minutes. That's not the same. Time does not equal results. And in this case, an effective studier is going to be 1,000 times better than somebody that spends 5 or 6 hours on a topic. I promise you, I study less than most people. It's just when I study hard and I study efficiently. That is so much better, so much more effective, so much easier on my lifestyle than spending 5 hours reading and rereading a book until my brain just feels like soup. Recap. Don't intake information to learn, pull it out. Pull out as much information as you know, correct it, intake information to complement that, and rinse and repeat. You're not going to learn unless you recall information. That's what a test is testing for anyway. You're like an athlete. An athlete that does sprints isn't going to train walking. You're not training intaking information. You're training pulling it out. So that's the best I can give you for that. If you want to go further, there are 1,000 videos talking about how to maximize the effectiveness of flashcards, how to maximize the effectiveness of active recall. But the simple concept is there. That's all it is. The next step is going to be study spacing. This has been something I've improved upon my study regimen in the last year and a half, but especially these last 2 semesters. Originally, when I started STEM classes, hard classes, say I had 4 classes, I would assign doing the homework on each class one day, one class another day, one class another day, one class another day. So what does this mean? Okay, I'm going to do chemistry on Monday, then I'm going to do microbiology on Tuesday, then I'm going to do English on all my English homework on Thursday, then I'm going to go back and finish chemistry on Friday, and then et cetera, et cetera. Each day would be a different piece of material, and a lot of people aren't that strict, but they don't effectively space out material. What am I talking about? When I learned chemistry on Monday, I spent time learning all that information. By the time I returned to it on Friday, I had lost most of it. So then on Friday, what I had to do was go back to Monday's material and relearn half of it that I had already spent my precious time learning. I don't want to do that. That's a waste. That's completely inefficient. So instead, you need to make sure you are studying every subject on your list. So right now I have OChem lab, anatomy lab, and psychology. So I need to study for these 5 classes, okay? Why would I split them up into 5 different days when every time I would return the next week, I would have to relearn half the material? That's completely inefficient. Instead, every single day, review or study something new in every single class. And when I heard about this, a professor told me, I was like, that's so inefficient. I can maximize my time more by spending 10 hours on one thing and then a week later spending 10 hours on it again. But the science is not in favor of that. The science is very clear that our brains, at the minimum, forget things in a 24-hour cycle. So at least every single day, you want to be reviewing resources, reviewing material that you have already learned. When you're doing study sessions, break up the material you learn. Say you have 4 hours of free time that you want to use to study. 4 hours is a long time. Using that 4 hours to study for one topic is not as effective as breaking it up into 45 minutes for anatomy, 45 minutes for biology, 45 minutes for chemistry. Do you see what I'm saying? Break up each study session into multiple topics. Practice recall every single day. You forget every single day. Another advantage of this is not only are you going to remember it the next day when you did it, when you're using that active recall, it is cementing everything you learned. Everything you can recall that you learned 24 hours previously, you're going to lock that into your memory. And the next day, the next material you learn is going to be locked into your memory. And by the time you get to the exams should feel almost mundane or boring. Like, yep, I know that. Yep, I know that. Yep, I remember that. Because you've reviewed this dozens of times. And I promise you, it gets easier to learn when the information backlog you have is extensive. What do I mean by this? Say you learned Chemistry 2 really well. You did this. You didn't cram for a single thing in Chemistry 2. Every time you got something new, you reviewed, you continued, you never crammed for a test. You were always prepared. Well, everybody that crammed for the test, maybe they got an A too. Maybe they did really good at cramming. Over Christmas break, they forgot everything. But you didn't. You have that material lodged somewhere deep in your brain. So by the time you get to organic chemistry next semester, you're going to be in 1,000 times better spot than they are because you have such a comprehensive information backlog, right? And I've started to see this develop where I'll be in the same classes as people that have taken the same course load as me, but I have a comprehension of material we learned a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that they simply don't have. And this makes classes easier. It makes it easier to connect dots, to add information if you have really learned all the previous information. I know that's a wordy way of describing it, but it's really a simple concept. Try to review everything every single day. So in this video, I took a long time to say a couple of things. One, you need to change. Like what you're doing won't cut it going down the road. Two, you need to have a path you're following. You need to have a vision of a person in the future that you want to be. Without that, you're not going to have the motivation to study, to work hard in the short term. Number three, when we're getting to actual study habits, you can't be intaking information for all your study. Most of your studying should be recalling information, struggling with that, thinking through it. High cognitive load, high cognitive effort. Third and finally, you need to space out your study timing so that you're making sure to hit every concept every single day. If you do this, even for a couple minutes every day, your recall ability will improve drastically. I'm talking exponentially. If you apply this stuff as I have, it's a world of difference. It's really very simple, but it's really hard to implement, which is why I'm saying you gotta have a reason why. Because it's hard and it's sucky when you start out, but I promise you it's worth it. It's worth the good grades. It's worth the extra free time. And it's worth the life in the future that you want. So, do your best. Get out there. Pass the class. Ace the class. I don't know. Get into the class. Whatever you need to study for. I'll see you next time.